Hi, everyone. I'm here with Matthew Green from the Telus World of Science, and he's going to be answering some of our amazing questions today. But before we get to answering some of your questions, I thought maybe we could find out a little bit about Matthew and what he does at the Telus World of Science. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We're excited to get to know you. I have some questions for you. We are wanting to know, what is your job at the Telus World of Science and how long have you been working there?
I am the lead science presenter, which means that I talk with our guests who come in the front door and make sure that everybody's having a good time while they learn about science. And I've worked here for 15 years.
Wow, that's a long time to be working there. What is the favorite part? What is your favorite part about your job?
Oh, man. My favorite part of my job is talking to children, answering their questions, talking to adults too. But anytime I can have a really good conversation about science and we can learn something together, I have had a good day.
That's awesome. So this question period today from our kids is right up your alley then.
Well, this is what I love to do.
Awesome. Okay, my next question is about the Telus World of Science. What is your favorite exhibit there?
Oh, that is a great question. My favorite exhibit isn't here quite yet. I really like when we have traveling exhibits, so exhibits that change. We have a couple a year. And coming up right away, we're having an exhibit about dinosaurs. And anytime that we have an exhibit about dinosaurs, I'm in a good mood because dinosaurs are awesome. And this is the third time we've had a dinosaur exhibit in the last 6 or 7 years. So I'm ready to go. I love dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah, we love dinosaurs too. We have lots of songs that we sing about dinosaurs together, so that's going to be amazing.
Excellent.
All right, my last question for you is, do you have any advice or tips for our young aspiring scientists?
Absolutely. The most important thing you need to do to be a scientist is to ask questions. Ask questions and then learn how to answer them. Because sometimes you have to find your own answers. But if you don't know something, that's okay. Somebody else might. And it is just fine to get an answer from someone else. You don't need to figure out everything yourself. If we all had to start at the beginning, we'd never get anywhere. Other people have already worked really hard, so you should learn what they've learned, and that way you can move forward. And don't forget to write things down. Otherwise, they don't always stick around.
That is excellent advice. Thank you so much, Matthew. I can't wait to hear all of your answers to our very curious questions that we've sent in. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
My name is Reese and I'm 6 years old. I got a question for you. Me, my family, and I love going on road trips to Banff and Jasper. I love the tall mountains. I've always wondered how mountains are made.
Let's talk about the Rocky Mountains. Believe it or not, 100 million years ago, the Rocky Mountains, or at least where the Rocky Mountains are now, was actually a great big sea. A sea. Now it's a mountain range. What happened is over time, the two sides of that sea kept getting closer and closer together. The sea was shrinking. And when those two sides finally touched, well, let's take a look at what I have here so we can see what happened. So imagine that this area here is our sea, and these two pieces of cloth are the two edges of the sea, the two big tectonic plates or land masses that crashed into each other. Slowly, over millions of years, they got closer and closer together. When they finally hit, they started to crumple against each other. So watch what happens to this land here as they start to push against each other. You can see as they push together, we form wrinkles. all these little pieces start to stand up. And these are like the mountains that formed in our Rocky Mountains here in Canada.
Hi, my name is Delano. I want to know how volcanoes erupt.
Our Earth has many layers. We live on a layer called the crust. Down below the crust is a layer called the mantle, and below that there's a layer of liquid rock called magma. Now the crust, where we live, has lots of holes and cracks in it. And liquid rock, magma, from down below is able to come up through those little holes and cracks to the surface. Sometimes it can make it all the way through, and it'll just leak out onto the surface as lava, no problem. Other times, its path to the surface is blocked. There's something getting in the way. And so that magma will build up below the surface. More and more magma will build up, the pressure will increase, and this is a volcano. When the pressure gets high enough, the entire volcano will explode or erupt, and liquid lava will go everywhere. I've actually got some with me right now. Let's take a look at it. Well, it's not a liquid anymore. It's cooled down and turned into a solid. These are a couple of volcanic rocks. This came from the middle of the Earth all the way out to the surface where we are.
How does gravity work?
All objects pull on all other objects all the time. We call this gravity. The bigger and closer something is, the harder it pulls. The smaller and farther away something is, the less it pulls. That means things that are really big and really close, like the Earth, pull a lot harder than things that are smaller and farther away. In fact, the Earth pulls on us with so much force that we don't feel any other objects pulling on us. It's just so much bigger. It exerts a lot of gravity. To demonstrate how gravity works, I've got something here called a gravity well. We're going to pretend that this silver ball here is the Earth. We'll put it right down in the middle of our gravity well. And watch as some smaller objects get closer, they get pulled in with the Earth's gravity.
Why's the sky so blue?
That's a good question.
Where did the dinosaurs go?
That's a good question.
Where does the sun go at night?
That's a good question. That's a good question. That's a good question. Sometimes I don't know what the answer is, and so I just say.
Where does electricity come from?
Everything that exists contains little teeny tiny particles called electrons. Some things hang on to their electrons really, really tightly. Other things like to share their electrons freely. And when electrons are shared from one thing to another thing, when they travel, they create a force called electricity. I've got a machine right here that's going to create some electricity for us. It's called a Van de Graaff generator. When I turn it on, a big rubber band is going to start to spin. As that rubber band spins, it picks up electrons from a cloth down inside this blue box. It carries them up the tube and puts them on this metal ball. Now metal really likes to share electrons, so I'm going to use this stick to get some electrons from it and create some electricity. Let's take a look.
Why is the sky so blue?
That's a good question.
Where did the dinosaurs go?
That's a good question.
Where does the sun go at night?
That's a good question. That's a good question. That's a good question. Sometimes I don't know what the answer is, and so I just say, that's a good question. Sometimes I don't know what to tell you.
Hello, my name is Alex Stang, and I am 8 years old. My question is, what is the universe made of? Thank you.
Nobody really knows what most of the universe is made out of. In fact, that's one of the biggest mysteries in science right now. Scientists all over the world are trying to figure out what the universe is made out of and what's holding it all together. The parts of the universe that we do know about are made up of two things: matter and energy. Matter is all of the stuff in the universe, and energy is what makes that stuff go.
How do plants give air?
Plants create oxygen during a process called photosynthesis. Plants take carbon dioxide and sunlight through their leaves and combine it with water that they get from their roots to create sugar and oxygen. The sugar is what the plants use for their food, but they don't need the oxygen at all, so they just get rid of it, which is great because that lets us use it.
Hi, Beppie. Nella here. I have a scientific question. What makes the stars twinkle at night?
What are the stars made out of?
Stars are mostly made out of two elements called hydrogen and helium, which are gases right here on Earth. The thing is, stars are big. Stars are really, really big. Way bigger than any planet. When something gets that big, it starts to get very, very hot. Lots of heat, lots of pressure. And that causes the star to release energy. And a lot of the energy that star is releasing is as light. And that's what we see when we look up at a star. The color that the star glows depends on the temperature of the star. Stars that are really, really hot, the hottest stars, they glow blue. Stars that are cooler, but still really hot, glow red. And the stars that are in between, like our sun, they glow a beautiful yellow color.
What are rainbows made out of?
White light has all of the colors in the rainbow inside of it. They're just all blurred together. That means all the colors of the rainbow are inside sunlight. You just can't see those individual colors because they're all mixed up. When that sunlight hits a raindrop, it all gets sorted out and all of those colors separate. You can do an experiment at home to separate the colors out of white light. All you need is a flashlight and some sort of reflective disc, like a CD or a DVD. Let's give it a try and see if we can create some rainbows of our own.
Why is the sky so blue?
That's a good question.
Where did the dinosaurs go?
That's a good question.
Where does the sun go at night?
That's a good question. That's a good question. That's a good question. Sometimes I don't know what the answer is, and so I just say, that's a good question. Sometimes I don't know what to tell you kids, and so I just say, that's a good question.
Where does the rainbow end?
That's a good question.
Why do we need white pants?
That's a good question.
Why is the snow so